Welcome back to Between the Trenches. I'm Pastor Justin, and today I'm joined with
Pastor Rob.
Pastor Rob, and we are so thrilled that you guys have logged in or clicked on or whatever you've done to get to this moment. We're glad that you're here. And Rob, spring is in the air.
It is. I love spring. The interesting thing about spring in East Tennessee is it also means allergy season.
It does mean allergy
which is
season.
Crazy. And it's funny. I asked the choir, this is a Monday today. Yesterday though, I asked the choir, like, what, they kind of like had this foggy look on their face. I was like, what's going on? They're like, allergies.
They
And
have
everybody,
headaches.
oh, it was funny. It was funny.
The only thing worse than having to come back to church earlier on a Sunday night is to have to come with a headache.
With the headache because
Yeah.
of allergies.
But
Yeah.
we love you that do it so faithfully week in and week out. Rob, what's some of your favorite things about spring? What do you love about spring?
I love new life, green grass, the flowers.
Yes.
I love getting back on my mower.
Yes.
There's something about being on my mower. That's my like unwind podcast. It's like a therapy for me.
Well, let's talk about mowing. I love to mow, but at the same time, I have to mow a lot. You have to mow a lot. How many
do.
acres do you mow?
I mow about 2 regularly. I have about 6, but I mow
Yeah.
2.
So I mow 6.
Yeah.
And I love it. I really do. But it's the timing thing.
Takes forever.
It's just, I have to. Do you mow in segments or do you do it all at once? Well, I guess
for
with
the 2 acres, I do it all at once. Yeah.
So me, I just have to break it down. Some days I get to do it, but if I do it all, it's like a 4-hour job.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And so a lot of times I have to break it down just day by day because of all of the other demands of golf. Like I've got to get golfing.
It's springtime. We got things to do. We can go golfing.
Lincoln is in golf season,
Yeah.
and so what else do you love about spring?
I love being outside. I enjoy
Yep.
whether it's going out and even just like cooking on the back deck or eating a meal outside. I love just to tinker around, with stuff in the garage, and so I just enjoy being outside. I don't like to be cold. In fact, today we're dressed warm because here in East Tennessee yesterday it was 75.
Here we go.
Today it's going to be 20 and snowing.
Yes,
And it just is what it is.
it is what it is, and some other things about spring. I love being. You talked about going outside.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is I love on Sunday nights to go home and cook on the back deck when the weather's permissible. It's just one of those things that's like that screams spring to me. It's baseball season's about to crank up. I don't watch a lot of baseball, but I've also always been passionate about keeping up with baseball. So listen, I know that we've all got a lot of reasons that we love spring and we're kind of getting out of that cold, drabby.
Yeah.
By the way,
We're
at the
waking up.
time of our recording, we're officially on a time change.
We
So
are.
we're getting more sunlight
Yes.
that's being stretched out,
which is wonderful.
which is wonderful as well.
Yeah.
But with that, spring also brings something else that we want to talk about today. And spring, and I don't even really officially feel like it's spring until we celebrate one certain event, which we know as.
Yeah, it's Easter. It's the resurrection.
It's Easter. So Resurrection Sunday. And so we want to talk about, on today's episode, Easter on purpose, making the most of the resurrection weekend.
Yeah, it's huge. It's such a important, pivotal part of what we do, not only in the church world, but just as a follower of Jesus. This is for everybody. It is such a pivotal moment of our faith. A lot of people, I wouldn't say the whole world, but a lot of the world celebrates Christmas.
That's right.
But Easter is, you'll probably reference it. It is the Magna Carta. It's the big. It's everything.
It
for our
is.
faith.
I say that all the time, don't I?
Yeah.
The Magna
You do.
Carta of our
You do.
faith. Do you know
Yeah.
where I heard that?
Well,
This
no, I
little
don't
preacher
actually.
by the name of Adrian Rogers.
Who is
And
that?
I heard Adrian Rogers used to say that Easter is the Magna Carta of our faith. And I thought, I'm adopting that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that for the rest of my life because it really is. It is the foundation of everything. Now, obviously, we'll lean into this real quick. Christmas and Easter.
Mm-hmm.
The question has been asked so many times, what is more important? The truth is yes.
Yes, you can't
Yes.
have one without the other.
Absolutely. How can you have a death and a resurrection without there being a birth?
Yeah.
And if obviously they work simultaneously and they have to work together. And so from the cradle to the cross, then obviously it's the foundation of our faith. And we want to talk about Easter. And we're gonna spin this kind of in 2 ways. We're gonna talk a lot about how to help families maximize their Easter weekend, so it's not just another holiday. But we also, just briefly, because obviously at the time of this episode, it may be too late for some churches to take advice. Maybe next year we'll talk about it. We'll talk a little bit about what churches, what pastors, what worship pastors can do to help families maximize the weekend. And
Yeah,
so
that's great.
we're going to, obviously Easter's one of the biggest weekends of the year for churches and for families, and people are planning meals, they're planning egg hunts, they're getting family gathers, they're traveling. But for many believers, it's part of the most, it's one of the most important weekends. So how do we make the most of that weekend so that it is not just a tradition, and it actually is a spiritual moment for our families? Because the truth is, Easter's not just another holiday.
No.
It is not just a holiday.
It can't be.
It's the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I've seen this quote so many times that Easter, or the resurrection is heaven's receipt that our sin debt has been paid in full. And that's a powerful word. It's the receipt. The resurrection is the receipt that our sin debt has been paid in full. So we're going to break this episode down in 5 segments. Rob, what are we going to talk about?
I think we kind of already mentioned it, but why does Easter matter? What is the foundation for us celebrating this particular day, this particular event in history? Why does that matter? And then because of that, why is it then non-negotiable?
Sure.
Why does it have to be so important?
We'll talk about how families can celebrate Easter intentionally.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what churches can do to help families maximize an Easter weekend.
Yeah.
And because if we're not careful as a church, we can bombard that weekend with so many activities that families can't even enjoy it. And don't let me forget, when we get to that moment, I want us to lean into the moment where we made a transition at our church that now involves we don't do an Easter evening service.
Right.
And we have reasons why we do that.
We do.
It took me years to get there. But for that pastor that may be struggling with that, I want to lean into that. So don't let me forget that when we get to that 4th segment. And then we'll close the episode by talking about the deeper meaning of the resurrection. So we want to talk about how families can approach Easter. So segment number 1, why Easter matters more than any other day. Why is it so important, Rob, in your mind and in your opinion?
I think the biggest thing is this. You have so many other denominations, so many other figureheads in history that were spiritual leaders. Think of like Muhammad, Buddha, those that were leaders of a spiritual movement, leaders of some sort of way to attain nirvana or God or whatever. Jesus claimed to be the way, the truth, and the life. What we find, though, is that none of those other spiritual figureheads, none of them resurrected.
Right.
Every single one of them has died. They've passed on from the scene. The cult leaders, even the Joseph Smiths closer to our day as opposed to the ancient ones. But Jesus is the only one who died, was buried, and resurrected like he said he was going to do, fulfilling that prophecy. And that event has changed the entire world.
You know, and what's interesting is you and I both we've made our journeys or pilgrimages to Israel. What's interesting is that, take the Buddhist. They go visit the shrines of Buddha, the temples of Buddha, to celebrate a deity that's dead. Muslims take that pilgrimage to Mecca to visit a tomb where their leader is dead. We make our pilgrimage to the nation of Israel, and we go to that little spot there in where that garden tomb is located, not to find the body of our Redeemer. We go to celebrate the fact that he is not there.
Right.
And we're continually, over 2,000 years later, we're continuing to celebrate he is not here. He is risen indeed.
Right.
And so Easter does matter. And that's a great point, because where every major religion of the world goes to the shrines, the temples, the edifices that have been built as a memoir of their deity that is dead, we celebrate Easter because our deity is alive.
Yeah. It was a neat moment when we were in Israel at the garden tomb. It's right next to Calvary, right next to Golgotha. They're in close proximity, and so you can see what is now a bus station, which is where Calvary was, Golgotha. But then the garden tomb, we had an opportunity, and I think a lot of tours that go there have an opportunity to partake in the Lord's Supper right there. And so as we're sitting there, we're literally not mourning. I've been to.
Did y'all do this in the little chapel that's there?
We did ours outside under like a pavilion kind of thing.
There's a little chapel that's there.
There is,
and I had the privilege to do a Lord's Supper in there. That was really awesome.
It's neat because when I went to the shrines in Japan of people casting their anything, money, whatever type of offering towards Buddha, and it's just this statue that's just dead, and it's so hopeless, and it's so dark, and it's so empty. And we're in this garden, and my mind went to Japan because of watching them worship. I'm in this garden celebrating because I'm doing what Jesus said. He said, do this in remembrance of me. You do show the Lord's death until he comes back.
Absolutely.
And so it's this celebration of what he did for us, the fact that he is who he claimed to be. He rose again. He's not in the tomb, but we're also doing this in anticipation of what's going to happen. And it was such an exciting moment of just this, thank you, God. Oh, I can't wait for what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that empty tomb. It is the receipt. Yeah. It's the evidence that the cross worked. It did its job. So this is why Easter is necessary. Let's talk about another thing. Okay. Why Easter Church should be non-negotiable. And obviously we laugh sometimes and we make light of, and I don't know that we should, but we laugh about the fact that you've got your Easter only and your Christmas only crowd, where it's the only time that they go to church. The truth of the matter is, I believe that God deserves obviously more than just Easter or Christmas, but I'm of the persuasion after 25 years of ministry that if it requires Easter to get somebody's body in the building to celebrate the resurrection, then that's what are we losing that?
Okay.
Why would we? Yeah, let's get them here.
Absolutely.
And so for Christmas, for Christian families, Easter worship should be one of the most important moments of the entire year. Mm-hmm. And so let's just kind of talk through that very quickly and talk a little bit about the spiritual celebration. For example, the resurrection, it deserves our worship. You're a worship pastor. You lead us in worship.
Sure.
Let's talk about why the resurrection deserves that kind of worship.
Okay, so doesn't a worship service we do one every week. So just take Sunday morning. So 52 times a year, we are celebrating the resurrection.
Absolutely.
Right? So wouldn't the day that is set aside now, is a date specific to Jesus' resurrection? It's not. People
get so caught up into that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm not caught up in it at all. We get to celebrate it really every Sunday, but we do focus on this one day a year that we get to celebrate together the resurrection of Jesus. It absolutely, we say he's worthy. In fact, when we look into the book of Revelation, we find a whole crowd standing before a throne looking at a lamb who was worthy, right?
Yeah.
He's worthy of our worship. So does it not mean that right now, as followers of Jesus, that it's worthy of our worship to take the day that we can corporately as the church, as the Big C church, the global church, celebrate the resurrection of Jesus? I think it's worthy of our I guess next level worship. We get to do it every Sunday, and really as a believer, we get to celebrate that every day. But there's just something special as the church coming together, celebrating the resurrection intentionally. I think it's just because it's deserved.
Well, and if you think about the Easter narrative itself, when Peter and John found an empty tomb, they were ecstatic.
Yeah.
Like they were.
It wasn't a casual.
Yes, on day
he
one.
rose from the grave. Like this is.
They ran.
Huge news.
They ran back and they said, "You got to come and see. You've got to see this." And they celebrated. They were exuberant. I remember growing up, my pastor would always make this comment, and I loved it. He would always say, he said, "The empty tomb deserves a full church." Mm-hmm. And so the resurrection deserves our worship. Another thing, when you think in relation to your family, I think what we prioritize teaches our family something. And so children learn from watching their parents. And if Easter church is optional, like if we opt to do something else because it's this beautiful weekend where the flowers are blooming and the wind is blowing and the temperatures are rising, then the truth of the matter is we're not really giving our children a chance to see how valuable and viable that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason that I think that we should make sure that Easter Sunday is non-negotiable. And here's a big one, and I want you to speak into this a little bit. That is, it's one of the most gospel-driven days of the year.
Sure. It's huge. We talk about the gospel for salvation, and it is one of the most important times of the year where people are open to the gospel because we're talking about Jesus. We're talking about the resurrection. We're talking about why we're even celebrating this. And what does the gospel do? It provides forgiveness. Yep. It provides hope. It provides redemption. It provides restoration. It provides a future. There's so many things that the gospel does for salvation. But even beyond that, I think that as believers, one thing we need to remember is that the gospel was not just for salvation. The gospel is for you and me today.
Sure.
What does that look like? That looks like, I think Easter is so important for me today, gospel focused, because man, I need grace today.
Mhm.
Doesn't the Bible say that we're saved by grace through faith?
Yep.
Isn't that the gospel? The
That's
gospel
it.
is the good news.
Sure.
By definition, gospel means good news. What is the good news? That Jesus died, he was buried, he rose again. And
Paul said, moreover, I declare unto you the gospel.
that is the gospel.
Yep.
That is the good news. First Peter, I just thought of this as we were sitting here, who in his own self bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, being dead to sins, should live unto righteousness. It's not just the moment of salvation, it's life now.
Yeah.
And we get to experience the righteousness of Christ. We get to experience continually the hope. We have bad days, we have hard days, we have difficult things we walk through, diagnosis, we have bills, all these things.
Sure.
But the gospel says, you've been shown grace.
Yes.
The gospel says you are worthy, you're valuable. The gospel says you have a purpose. And so I think the gospel is so great for salvation, but it also is for every believer to remind themselves that Jesus did that for me so that I could be saved, but also so that I could live unto righteousness. And then it says, by whose stripes you were healed. So
Yeah.
now we live in this healed state of, man, Jesus said, I've come that you might have life more abundant. And so the gospel, it gets pushed at Easter because it is the good news, but it's not just for salvation. It is for every believer to celebrate what Jesus has done.
Yeah, and
for
don't
us.
you think too, like you were talking, don't you think that the crazier the world becomes, that is, the further removed, Jesus said it would be this way, the further removed we become from the death, burial, and resurrection, the worse the world gets.
Absolutely.
And obviously, the worse the world gets, the more the gospel of hope and redemption and forgiveness becomes attractive.
Absolutely.
And so for that reason alone, I feel like with every passing Easter, it should just get more exciting.
I agree.
Because the world is it's spinning out of control.
Out of control,
We
right.
watch what's happening on the news. We watch what's happening across our own nation, happening across the globe. And it just makes the gospel that much more attractive. And for that reason alone, it becomes one of the most gospel-driven days of the year. And so
Absolutely.
obviously and we'll talk more about this at the end of the episode, but what a chance to invite our neighbors and our
Yes.
coworkers and our family members and people that are looking for hope and they're looking for answers and they're concerned about the wars that are happening in the Middle East and they're concerned about the things that are happening here in our own country and the political chaos that's happening across America. And they're scratching their head trying to figure out, what is this world coming to? Well, we know what it's coming to. It's coming to Jesus.
Sure.
And
That's
what
the-
a chance
that's the
for
hope.
us
Right.
to lean in and use Easter as an opportunity to say, hey, why don't you come to church with me this weekend?
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, we all could probably be thinking of somebody. And so I think that it's important for us to realize that Easter is non-negotiable for this reason alone, because it's one of the most gospel-driven days of the year.
Yeah, and I think to your point, let's play on the people that will only come on Easter Sunday. Great. So that's the very reason.
100%.
Bring them in. The people that we might invite that might, hey, it's Easter. Would you come with us to church? Yes, because
Yeah.
of the gospel.
And you and I both know, because we grew up in a culture where they did this, some pastors, they almost make people feel guilty for
Oh,
coming one time a year.
please.
Now, do I think that a person needs to give God more than one or two Sundays a year? 100%. Like, I'm not gonna capitulate my conviction on that. Like, I think that if you're a born again believer, you ought to be involved with the local body of believers.
Sure.
But listen, if Easter or Christmas is a springboard to get a family into church, then let's embrace them while they're here. Let's put our arms around their neck and hug them and say, look, we're just thankful that you're here. And so I quit years ago. I spent the first, in transparency,
Yeah.
I thought growing up that because of the guys
This is
that I
confession
often
time.
loved, yeah, it's confession time, that I'm gonna be gritty and I'm gonna poke at those people that
Yeah.
the first time you've been here in a year, and I'm gonna, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't, that sense of trying to create that conviction over them, it didn't work. Actually, I think it was repulsive to them. And so I've learned to just say from the pulpit, look, if this is your first time at church in a long time, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
You made a good decision. You made the right choice.
Could we make like just an impassioned plea? If you're a pastor listening to this, don't beat those people to feeling bad about being there once or twice a year.
No.
Literally go out of your way to love them, to welcome them, to encourage them, to remember the old saying, people will remember what you say, yeah, but they'll really remember how you made them feel.
Sure. And, Miss Smith, this is the first time her grandson's been in church. She's been praying for him and begging God, and she's convinced him to come with her on Easter. And the last thing that Miss Smith's grandson needs is some mean-spirited pastor that's going to use the pulpit as a whipping post to just
No.
beat this guy up for
Please
never
don't
coming to
do that.
church.
Please
And
don't do that.
it's a grave mistake. And I wish we would get away from that. Look, if we love people and we make them feel welcome, there's a good chance they're going to come back and they're going to get it eventually.
Sure.
But we need to leave those results up to the Lord. Segment number 3, what are we going to talk about here?
Let's talk about how we, as especially dads, can make the resurrection a family event. We can be intentional about how we lead our family through the resurrection and the importance of the resurrection. It's great to have them in church, but what does that mean specifically for our family around our table?
Yeah, and the reason we're doing this, remember, we are a podcast where it is real talk on life, leadership, and ministry.
Right.
So this podcast, we want multiple episodes, and we shared with this weeks ago in episode 1 that we want to encourage, we want to equip, we want to edify, not just pastoral leadership or ministerial staff, but we want this to minister to families. And so how do families celebrate Easter intentionally? And we just want to talk about some practical ways.
Yeah.
Some of these things we probably do as dads and as Christian families with our children. Some of these things that we were talking before the episode started, some things that I have never done that I'm going to start doing, Lord willing, this year. So let's just start with it practically, reading the resurrection story together as a family. I don't know what the Maddox family tradition is. The Pratt family tradition at Christmas is every single year, I set my kids on our staircase coming downstairs before they get to go to the Christmas tree. I stand at the bottom of the staircase. We open the Bible to Matthew chapter 1, Luke chapter 1 or 2, and we read the Christmas narrative. We may grab an Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 9, but I'm going to always read to them something about Christmas, what it really represents, because I want them to know that, yes, you're going to celebrate with some gifts that we've picked up for you, things that you've wanted, but really this isn't about us. This is about Jesus. But I'll make another confession, number 2. I haven't done this for Easter.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why.
I would confess the same thing. We do that for Christmas. We do, and you're good to go to the Old Testament. My kids are good to get through like Luke 2, like maybe 1 through 11, and then we're on into the presence.
Well, they like the Old Testament because it's usually only 1 or 2 verses. Where in the New Testament, I'm reading like whole passages.
Right. No, we
so here I got Asher saying, "Dad, can we do the Old Testament Christmas this year?" And so
that's funny.
So
if my kids are listening, we're staying in the New Testament, okay?
So I think one of the things that we could do is find a conducive environment, whether it's at the Easter egg hunt, whether it's Sunday before you go to church, whether to read some Easter narratives to your children.
As a family, yeah.
Ask some questions. Why did Jesus die? Why does the resurrection matter? What does the resurrection mean for? Can you imagine if you have a 9-year-old that you're burdened about that's not made a profession of faith?
Mm-hmm.
What an opportunity to start having those gospel-driven conversations about why did Jesus die?
Yeah.
Why was Jesus buried? Those conversations alone could point a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, 16, 17-year-old who's probably going to sit there in this awkward moment and think, "What, Dad, why are you reading this story to us sitting on the couch? We got our Easter clothes on. It's time to go to church. The preacher's going to tell us about this. Why are you doing it?"
Right.
Because it creates gospel conversations in the context of your own home.
Absolutely.
Deuteronomy chapter 6 says, talk about these things all the time. Put them as a post on your door, as a frontlet between your eyes. What better environment to do that than at our home? So I think that we would learn, just conversate about the Easter story in the context of your family. What's another way we can do this, Rob?
Well, I think around Easter we have a lot of traditions that we do.
Traditions?
Different things. So why not take those things that you're doing? That's the what. So it's things like we go to a Good Friday. We do a Good Friday service here.
Yep.
So we do Good Friday. It's a communion service. We do an Easter bash on Saturday, the week of Easter, and that's a egg hunt for the little kids. It's an egg hunt for the big kids. It's a lot of movement on the campus, a lot of things happening. It's a really great event. We also, we celebrate a family meal on Easter, whether it's with grandparents or aunts, uncles, whoever. So there's traditions that we have as a family, but why not connect the what we do with the why we do it?
Oh, that's so good.
Okay, so we're really good at telling kids, this is what we're going to do. Why don't we as parents, mom, dad, let me challenge you. You said it, and just as you were leading up to this, you said why. We as parents need to answer the question of why. Why do we do this? Why are we celebrating the Good Friday service? What was good about Friday? Why do we even, okay, let's just talk about it. We have an Easter egg hunt. What does Easter eggs have to do with Jesus on the cross? Well, Let's talk about how we relate to our culture and what might bring people onto the campus to hear the gospel. Because at our Easter bash, we do an Easter egg hunt and kids get candy, and that's fun. And that might be an exciting thing for kids to get here. Why do we do that? So that they can hear the gospel.
It's an evangelistic opportunity.
Absolutely. But does my 10-year-old know that?
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Why do we celebrate Easter? I think if we can have the conversation, not just on Easter, it's about Easter, but why not all the time?
Yeah.
Why not, Dad, why do we go to church on Sunday? My son wouldn't necessarily ask this, but didn't the Jews celebrate Saturday was the Sabbath?
Right.
So why? We as the parents get the opportunity to explain the why and connect traditions of the what we do and just connect it to the gospel.
Man, I'm listening to you talk, and I think what I'm hearing is that if we frame all of these traditions that we do around, these events, but we just don't pack the weekend with all of these things. Well, we got to go to grandma's because we're doing lunch together, and we have to go to the church because we've got the egg hunt. We've got to go to the Good Friday service. And what if these all became conversational pieces where literally what we're doing, just talking about, my son may not ask this question, but if those conversations were happening, what we're really doing is we're actually preparing little theologians.
We're discipling.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the context of everyday discipleship so that our children can understand the why, as you said. And I love that. I love that thought pattern, because if we're not careful, we're going to roll through the Easter weekend. And look, we're trying to minister to families here, and we're trying to talk to that mom that's listening to this podcast right now, this grandmother that's listening to this podcast right now. Let's talk to the grandma who really does love Jesus with all of her heart. And she's burdened because her son is not taking her grandchildren to church on a regular basis. Matter of fact, they're not even going to church on Easter Sunday, but they're coming to your house for lunch.
Sure.
What an opportunity for that grandma or that grandfather to speak life, to speak Jesus into their family. These are practical things.
Absolutely.
That if we're not careful, we will roll through without ever taking the opportunity just to maximize those holiday traditions by continually pointing it back to Jesus, the cross, the death, the burial, the resurrection, the gospel.
It's a great point. It doesn't have to be here at the church.
Right.
It doesn't have to be on this campus. It can be around your dinner table.
Yeah.
It can be around the conversations afterwards, because what happens the rest of Easter Sunday? Those conversations can be had if we just have to be intentional about pointing them that way.
Yeah, let's talk about an Easter sunrise service when our kids are wiping their eyes and complaining because we're waking them up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to church, and they're like, "Why do we have to do this?" I can hear Asher already, like he's not going to want to get up for that service. But what an opportunity!
Tell him I'll bring him some chocolate milk.
He's on. He's in there. If he's got chocolate milk coming, he's going to celebrate.
Right.
But what an opportunity for me to be able to say to my children, why are we getting up? It's still dark outside. It's not time for church yet. To be able to explain to them, because it was early in the morning that the scripture teaches that Jesus resurrected.
Those women went there early before the sun was risen, the Bible says.
And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
And so it's all about being able to point back to the why. And we can do that through a lot of our celebrations and our traditions. Under this segment, I also would talk for a minute about just creating some resurrection traditions. We as a church, I think we at Clear Springs, we do a pretty good job trying to create some traditions for families. For example, we started, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, we started a sunrise service. We started it in our building. I remember year one, we were going to do it outside and the weather was not permissible.
Right.
So we just did it in the building. It was so well attended, 400 or 500 people here.
Sure.
We have now since then been able to move it to our pavilion, which is a really awesome thing because we can throw the doors open, and we did that last year. But that's a cool tradition.
It's a great tradition.
A tradition that I love.
Absolutely. I do the same thing. Obviously, we bring our family. The sunrise service. We also do an event here, whether it's a play or Easter drive-through or something like that, making that a family event, something that I think it's important to have.
And there's two sides to that: to be involved in helping pull that event off,
sure,
or to just come and
just attend
and attend it.
That could be a tradition. Just attend. That's okay. We could use volunteers. That would be really great. But if you, whatever it is, take the season. It's kind of being handed to you on a silver platter. You have an opportunity. Make the tradition. Make the opportunities. Make the, even around your house. Maybe you dye Easter eggs or something like that. Well, my kids like to do that at their grandma's house. They dye Easter eggs. Whatever. go for it. It's
Yeah.
not my thing, but
I hate the smell.
it
That vinegar
smells
smell?
so weird.
Ugh.
It's vinegar, and then the dye gets on everything.
Oh yeah.
And then trying to get the yolk
It's
out
like
of the
carving
egg.
pumpkins. I don't care nothing about carving pumpkins, and I don't care nothing about dyeing eggs.
Exactly.
I'd just rather go buy plastic ones.
But you could take
That is a tradition.
as a tradition, as a grandparent, and somehow tie that in with the gospel, with Jesus, with new life, with something.
Gosh, you're talking, and
Make
I'm
it-
like, man, what a cool thing for a grandparent. Do the egg dyeing night. Make you a playlist of worship music that's
Sure.
centered around the gospel.
Yeah.
Bring those grandkids into your house. Dye those eggs. Conversate about the gospel and why Jesus died. What an opportunity. We can literally create traditions that just continually point people back to the gospel.
You just have to be intentional about it.
That's right. Intentionality is key in everything in life. And I know we're talking a lot about traditions, but there is one flip side to this, and that is not to overextend yourself on the Easter weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes
That's
one
a
of the
hard
best things
thing
you
at
can do
church.
is just slow the day down. Because the truth is, Rob, we both know in the ministry, Easter can become extremely rushed. It can become jam-packed with all of these things, and some of the most meaningful moments happen when families just slow down long enough to talk about what the weekend represents and why we do it.
It simply reminds me of Mary and Martha. I mean, Martha's busy doing a good thing, and at the Easter season, we're busy. We're doing a good thing.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
trying to prepare, and we're doing the services and all the events. But Mary chose the better thing, which is just to sit at the feet of Jesus.
Mhm.
And I think
And Jesus said, I'm not taking that away from him.
it's important.
I'm not taking that away.
No. And so while there's service, it's necessary and there's things to be done. Maybe one of the intentional things we need to do is just slow down. And for us, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but
It is the right time to talk about it because I have confession number 3 coming.
oh boy.
I have confession number 3. I know where you're going. Do you want me to go ahead and give my
Go ahead.
confession?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my confession is that for probably, I've been a pastor for 22 years, and probably almost 20 of those years, I had this mindset: I will never, absolutely never, not have a service
Right.
on a Sunday night. Is that where you were
That
going?
was. Yeah.
Okay. And I spent all of those years with this, and I'm going to be honest with you. It was on my end. I can't speak on behalf of other pastors. This is me talking on the part of Justin Pratt. It was a legalistic approach.
Sure.
And a couple of years ago, God began to rearrange my heart a little bit, because what I realized is on that Easter weekend, we ask a lot. We ask for people to bring their families on that Saturday for the egg hunt. We ask those families to come back really early. Well, now what we're doing is we're asking them to come on Friday night for a Good Friday service where we take the Lord's Supper together. Then we ask them to come back on Saturday for the Easter egg hunt. Then we ask them to come to the sunrise service. Then we ask them to make sure that they don't miss the Sunday morning service. You see where I'm going?
Sure.
We are stacking. Where does a family have a chance to just celebrate that holiday of the resurrection together?
Right.
Where do they get to grandmas? Where do they get to their aunts and uncles? Where do they get to spend time with their cousins? And so when we throw that, and I am not in any stretch of the imagination, I am not asking one single pastor to exterminate their Sunday night service on Easter. I'm saying for us to give our church families a chance to slow down and take their breath and enjoy their family, it makes sense for us to not do that Sunday night service. And so it took me years to get there, because I said, I don't want to do that, but I feel like God gave me a release from that. And so that's why we do it here. By the time we do the Friday service, the Saturday event, the Sunday morning super early, the Sunday service, it's a big weekend. It's a big weekend for our choir. It's a big weekend for our volunteers. And I hope that our people appreciate that. Obviously, there's some that may not like it, but we just felt 2 or 3 years ago it was the right direction to go for our church.
It's interesting. You said maybe some might not like it. I mean, in my mind, I kind of replace, if you need to feel like you need a Sunday night, well, just move your Sunday night to Friday night. Come Friday night. We're doing a service. Like, I don't know. That's interesting to me. But I totally agree with the mindset behind that. And we're not casting shade on anybody. There's great churches out there that never do a Sunday night service. And that's you do you. That's great.
Yeah.
There's churches that are always going to do a Sunday night service. Great. You do you.
Absolutely.
We just contextually, for our context here and for the health of our people, and also how you alluded to this, but how can a family be intentional about the resurrection and the gospel with their family when they don't have time together just as a family? They might be doing things here at the church as a family,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they're together as a family. They're here Friday night. They're here Saturday. They're here Sunday. And my family's going to be here for all of that, but I'm not with them. I'm not having intentional conversations. We're busy doing things. So let's slow it down.
Well, and Rob, too, this year looks even more different. In a couple of weeks when we do Easter, we're adding not just that Good Friday service and communion, the Saturday event with our kids for the egg hunt, the sunrise service, but we're doing 2 services this year to facilitate our growth.
Right.
How many was it you said to our church the other day that we had on Easter Sunday last year?
We had 1804 last year in 2025.
And that pushes our build into the absolute max.
Yeah, we can't do anymore.
And we've got to facilitate that. And so now we're adding another service. And so again, I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody do what they have to do for their church.
Yeah.
And I promise on our behalf, there's no judgment with that. But for us, I felt like God gave us a reprieve and a release from just continuing to stack more events and more events. And obviously there's probably people that have thoughts towards me or towards you or towards our church, and that's fine. Look, we're trying to please don't. We're trying to please an audience of one, and I feel like God has given us that liberty, and it was something that we did. And so the point of this is, do not allow Easter to become so rushed that you miss those moments with your family. Yep. You know, people say you get 18 summers with your kids. Well, if that's true, you only get 18 Easters. So make the most of it. I would encourage you. Let's talk about a 4th segment as we come down to the last few minutes of our podcast, and that is how churches can help families maximize Easter. One of them we just told you about. Give them a chance to catch their breath over that weekend, to give them a chance to do their family events and not feel like everything, especially if they're volunteers at a church. We've got to give those families that chance to do that. But there's some other ways that we can do that. Let's talk about them.
I think as you maximize the weekend, I think we've talked about it all throughout, and it's been the thread here. Make the gospel clear.
Yeah.
Okay. And that can be in every area of life. I think that's talking about the problem of sin. You know, in our country, we're dealing with wars right now and stuff globally, but also here in our own communities. And what is sin doing to our world? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about then why was there a need for a savior? Why did God set up even the Old Testament system of the sacrifice, looking towards Jesus and his sacrifice and what that was going to look like? And what does the sacrifice of the cross look like? What does the victory of the resurrection mean? So good. And then how about the invitation for salvation? I think it's kind of like being invited to a party or being invited to church. Let's talk about church. People are more likely to come to church if someone invites them personally.
Very true. Okay.
Well, what about the gospel? People are more likely to respond to the gospel if they're invited personally. Make that with your kids. Make that with an intentional conversation with a family member. And so I think making the most out of Easter is just maximizing the conversation of the gospel.
I love this thread that you're on, because one of the things that I teach our new members class when we get to the doctrinal section of membership at Clear Springs, and this is probably a whole nother podcast for another time, and maybe we'll lean into this.
Topic, yeah.
It would be. But I do the same thing that I do with our members, our new members, is the same thing that I'm trying to do often with my children, and that is I want them to understand that everything that we see and experience in the world, it's coming through a conduit of a deeper spiritual battle. Mm-hmm. You know, every murder, every rape, every war, everything that we see, all the way down to the creation that groans with storms and hurricanes and tornadoes, it's all coming from a deeper spiritual battle. Yep. And I think Easter it maximizes the opportunity to talk about what you said, the problem of sin, and how the cross brings victory to that, and why the resurrection is necessary, because it brings that sense of reprieve and victory that, like, this is not the way that it's always going to be. Right. The cross changes everything.
Everything.
The resurrection changes everything. And so that's why we create those moments. But one of the other things that we can do as a church, and I'll speak on my behalf as a pastor, I'll let you speak for a moment on your behalf as a worship guy. Okay. And that is, when we come in here on Easter weekend, it's not that God doesn't deserve our very best every weekend. He does. And Rob, listen, you know me. I don't ever try. I try to walk to that pulpit as a dying man that's preaching to dying men, and give God my very best every time that I stand, whether that's a Wednesday morning, whether that's a Wednesday night, a special meeting. But man, there's something about Easter that it's such a celebratory moment that if there's ever a weekend that we're going to be off, if there's ever a weekend that we've got to be studied up and prepared, that's the weekend that I'm bringing it. And I think that worship would be the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I every time you get up there, you want to give it your best. But to your point, there's something special about Easter. So we're going to do our biggest. We're going to do our best. This year we're bringing our kids in with a choir special and a solo, and it's a big moment that we're going to kick the whole service off with this year.
Yeah.
And just it's just going to be an incredible thing. And I want to do my absolute best every week, but just there's something special about Easter.
Yeah,
People come expecting
absolutely
something different
it's
on Easter.
It's a different vibe.
I agree.
It's a different vibe, and that for that reason alone, for the pastor, for the worship pastor, for the staff member, for the church volunteer, the greeter at the front door.
This is everybody. The golf cart
offering,
driver.
yes, the offering bearer that's going to take
everything.
Man, it is the weekend that you bring your best. And maybe one year we'll do a podcast on some things we do to prepare our people for that. But let's just leave it at this for now. It's Easter weekend. Give it your very best, regardless of what you do. If you have Sunday school on Easter weekend, the best lesson you've taught all year needs to come that weekend. It's ripe. It's ready. Make it happen. Listen, I know this whole podcast has been centered around the subject of Easter, but at the end of the day, the resurrection is not something we just celebrate one Sunday a year. It's something we celebrate every single day of our life. We celebrate it every single Sunday. And because Jesus rose from the dead, death does not get the final word. Sin does not have victory. Darkness does ultimately win. We've got so much to celebrate, and it tells us something so powerful about God, and that is the worst thing is never the last thing. The cross looked like defeat, but thanks be unto God, the tomb sealed the deal, and we know that Jesus Christ won over death, hell, and the grave, and we live as more than conquerors because of it.
Yeah, amen.
And Sunday morning, that first Sunday morning, that resurrection morning proved that God is still writing the story.
Yeah.
But as we close this episode off, Rob, let's just offer some final challenges that we could offer to our listeners, regardless of who they are. What are some final challenges that we could just throw out to them?
All right, first thing, before I give a final challenge.
All right.
Confession time.
Oh, you're going to make a confession.
Confession time.
Well, I've made 3.
I forgot to remind you what I was supposed to remind you in segment 4.
No, I think we talked about it.
I couldn't even remember
the thing that I told you to remind me of was to talk about the Sunday night service.
Okay.
We no longer do it, and I feel like
I'm sitting here going, oh no, what did he say? What am I supposed to remind him about?
We're on it, man. You took me there and didn't even realize it.
Okay, sorry.
So we're on good. We're good.
We're good. All right.
So your confession don't even count.
Sorry. Feel better now.
All right, final challenges for listeners as we wrap this episode up.
We've said the word a few times in this podcast, intentionality. Make this weekend intentional. Attend Easter worship with intentionality.
So good.
Be on point. Be as a dad, as a husband, be the leader of your family. Get them up. Sunday church attendance on Easter Sunday morning is not a Sunday morning decision. It's a Saturday night decision.
100%.
Make the decision. Get up. Get out of bed, get dressed, and get to church.
I would say, secondly, for the pastor and the staff member that's listening, same concept. You spoke to families. I'm going to speak to pastoral leadership and ministerial staff.
Yeah.
Get there early. Be prepared. Love people. For those people that don't normally come, make them feel welcome. Make them feel like you really are glad they're there, and don't poke at them that this is the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And for the greeters, greet those visitors, show them love. We actually here at our church, we're actually having a Wednesday night that we're dedicating to a night of prayer and preparation, where we're going to take all of our volunteers in a meeting and we're going to pray together and we're going to prepare them so that we absolutely, no matter who drives to this campus, they're going to feel welcome and they're going to feel loved.
Yep.
What's another one?
I think it's important to understand, we talked about it a second ago, if somebody invites you to something, you're going to be likely to go to that. So why don't you invite someone to come with you to Easter?
Power of an invitation.
There's a phrase in church world right now. It's who's your one. And my wife asked me this the other day. She said, who's your one?
Wow.
And that was in regards specifically to salvation. Who are you intentionally, is lost, that you're trying to give them the gospel? And I'll be honest, confession number 2, I didn't have someone to name. There are people I know that are lost, but I can't say with intentionality, that is my one that I'm going after, that I'm trying to invite to church, that I'm intentionally trying to have gospel conversation with. And it's caused me to think. So I'd encourage you, who's your one, or who's your family that you could invite to come with you on Easter Sunday?
And a great way to launch that is to start praying right now. God, give me a burden for somebody.
Absolutely.
Give me a burden.
Yeah.
Just a simple prayer. God, put somebody on my mind, put somebody on my heart, put somebody across my path.
And be specific, because that's my problem. I've got people I know that are lost.
Sure.
I've got neighbors. I've got family members. But if I'm not intentional and specific, then I can just broad brush it. Oh, I'll just invite. No, go after somebody.
That's so good. And the fourth one and the final one, and we've talked a lot about this, so we really don't have to lean into it very heavy. That is simply talk about the resurrection with your family.
Yeah.
Make it an intentional weekend outside the walls of the church, at your house, Easter morning, sunrise morning, at the Easter egg hunt, at the family dinner. Find a way to be intentional about just talking about the resurrection and how important it is that during the Easter season, we are continually having gospel conversations as we've talked about. Listen, Easter's more than just a date on a calendar, Rob. It's the celebration that Jesus is alive.
He's
and
alive.
If the tomb is empty, anything is possible.
Let's live like it.
And let's live like more than conquerors. Last thing, I got one last question for you. I made 3 confessions. You've only made 2. Do you have one last confession you need to make, or are you good?
I'm hungry.
You're hungry.
Yeah, I'm
All
ready
right.
for it's not quite lunchtime, but I'm ready for lunch.
We'll get you out of here for lunch.
Sorry.
Guys, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for giving us about 40, 45 minutes of your time. I hope this has been helpful for you, to the dad, to the mom, to the grandparent, to the aunt or the uncle, to the teenager, the young adult, to the ministry leader. This is Raw Talk on life, leadership, and ministry. And we're just trying to get between the trenches. And right now we're in this spring season, and I hope that you maximize the Easter opportunity. Thank you so much for joining in today. Hey, let's go celebrate Jesus on Easter weekend and make the most of it. God bless you. Hope you'll have a great day.